Good morning. If people could, I'm sorry, we need to start to convene the meeting. Brad, can you just, yeah? Good morning, everyone, and welcome to meeting number 5 of the Toronto East York Community Council. We're going to begin by gratefully acknowledging that the Toronto East York Community Council meets on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 of the Mississaugas of the Credit. So, can I begin by asking if any members want to declare an interest in any items? No. Okay. Can I have a motion to confirm the minutes of the March 19th meeting? Councillor Matlow, all those in favor, opposed, carried. So we'll begin on page, I've lost it.
5.23.
5.23, which is on,
Item 5.23.
yeah. Item 5.23 on page 33 of the yellow-orange. I refuse to call them goldenrod sheets. This is appointments to business improvement area boards of management, including the newly merged Little Portugal on Dundas BIA. Councillor Layton, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.24, 440, 444, 450, and 462 Front Street West, 425, 439, 441, and 443 Wellington Street West, 6 through 18 Spadina Avenue, and 1 and 9 Draper Street Public Art Plan. Councillor Layton.
On behalf of the local councillor, I'd like to move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.25, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880, fire routes 50 Curzon Street, 106 and 108 Goodwood Park Court. Councillor Bradford.
Move the staff recommendations, please.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.26, Exhibition Place Cultural Heritage Landscape Assessment and Next Steps for Master Plan.
The local councillor wanted this held down.
Okay, so we'll hold it in Councillor Cressy's name.
As
5.27,
hold.
Ontario Place Revitalization, results of subcommittee consultation.
Hold.
Hold. Item 5.28, 150 Dunn Avenue, part of a larger parcel including 130, 160, and 162 Dunn Avenue, zoning bylaw amendment application, preliminary report. I'll move approval of the recommendations. All in favor, opposed, carried. Item 5.29, 10 through 30 Dawes Road zoning bylaw amendment application preliminary report. Councillor Bradford.
I'd like to move a motion amendment to expanded recommendations for expanded notice, please.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 5.30, 1075 Bay Street, zoning amendment application preliminary report. Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to move an amendment. The clerk can put that on the screen.
So we'll hold that?
We'll hold that down.
I'll hold that in Councillor Wong Tam's name. Item TE 5.31, 95 St. Joseph Street, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications, preliminary report. Councillor Layton. Sorry.
For Councillor Wong, we're doing a rundown now. I'll have to talk to you after.
Councillor Layton?
Yes, I have a motion.
Okay.
You'll recognize language from Councillor Wong Tam's motions from the last meeting, which is just, I've decided to do it from now on. Just take Councillor Wong Tam's motion from the previous meeting because it's always up to date.
And I think all of us should always be in awe of Councillor Wong Tam's practice on these matters. So, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.32, 954 through 958 Broadway Avenue and 72 Chester Hill Road, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications. I'm not seeing Councillor Fletcher, so I'm going to hold that in the chair's name until she is with us. Item TE 5.33, 78 through 90 Queen's Park, zoning amendment application, preliminary report. Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you. There should be a motion on this item as well. This is an institutional building for the University of Toronto along Queen's Park Avenue.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment
Also, the
in the
planetarium.
item? Pardon me?
The planetarium.
Yeah. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.34, 545 Lakeshore Boulevard West, zoning amendment application, preliminary report. Councillor Layton?
Yes. The local councillors indicated he'd like to move the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.35, 193 to 201.
That's okay, no problem. We will have to hold that down. Apparently, we're not ready.
We'll hold that for council. Let me just read the title out. 193 to 201 Church Street zoning amendment application, preliminary report. We're going to hold that in Councillor Wong Tam's name. Item TE 5.36, 985 Woodbine Avenue and 2078, 286, 210, 212, and 2106 Danforth Avenue official plan and zoning amendment applications preliminary report. Councillor Bradford.
Thank you very much. I'd like to amend the recommendations, move a motion for expanded notice.
Okay, with the expanded notice, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.37, 689 King Street West zoning amendment application, preliminary report. Councillor Layton.
Yes, there should be a motion for this.
Okay, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.38, construction staging area time extension, Bathurst Street, 578 Front Street West. Councillor Layton. 38.
The local councillor has indicated to move the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor, opposed, that carries.
You were to move.
Item TE 5.39, construction staging area, Center Avenue and Chestnut Street, 11 and 33 Center Avenue and 80 Chestnut Street. Councillor Layton.
Sorry, we're getting the boundaries mixed up a little bit here once again. This is to move the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Oh, that's fine. Item TE 5.40, construction staging area, 171 East Liberty Street. Councillor Cressy.
That would be
Councillor
Councillor Layton on this round, and I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.41, construction staging area time extension, 578 Front Street West and Niagara Street. Councillor Layton.
Yes, I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Moving right along. Item TE 5.42, construction staging area, 321 through 333 King Street West. Councillor Layton.
Again, I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.43, construction staging area 497 through 511 Richmond Street, Maud Street. Counselor Layton.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.44, construction staging area, Cumberland Street, 826 through 834 Young Street, and 2 through 8 Cumberland Street. Counselor Layton.
I believe I have a motion to amend.
Okay.
So I'll move that motion and the staff recommendations.
Okay. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.45, construction staging area, Elizabeth Street and Elm Street, 175 Elizabeth Street. Councillor Layton.
Yes, I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.46, construction staging area, 75 the Esplanade Church Street. Councillor
There's
Layton.
an amendment from Councillor Cressy.
Yeah, so we'll hold that in Councillor Cressy's name. If you can make a note to let him know that.
Oh, no, they don't have the...
They don't have the motion, so we'll
Sorry.
just hold it. Item TE 5.47, construction staging area, time extension, Church Street, 70 through 72 Carlton Street. Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, thank you. I move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.48, construction staging area, Dalhousie Street, 215 through 229 Church Street, and 117 Dundas Street, 8.
I'm being advised by the clerk that they have to hold that down.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
One second. Item TE 5.49, construction staging area, 177 Front Street East. Same? Hold down
it, yeah.
Councillor Wong Tam's name.
Yes, thank you.
Item TE 5.50, construction staging area, 65 King Street East, Colburn Street, Leader Lane. Okay, we'll hold that down also. Item TE 5.51, construction staging area, time extension, 81 Wellesley Street East. Hold.
No, we can just move forward.
can just-
Adopt the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.52, realignment of permit parking area 3J to exclude the development located at 871 through 899 College Street. Councillor Bradford.
On behalf of the local councillor, I'd like to move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.53, installation removal of on-street accessible parking spaces, March 2019, delegated. Anyone have any amendments to that? No? I'll just move it. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.54, accessible loading zone, Cohill Drive. I'm going to move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.55, accessible loading zone, Jennings Avenue. I'm going to move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.56, accessible loading zone, St. Clair Avenue West. Councillor Matlow.
The recommendation.
Moving staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.57, road alteration, O'Connor Drive and St. Clair Avenue East. Councillor Bradford.
Move the staff recommendations, please.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.58, parking amendments, Ripley Avenue. I'm going to move approval. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.59, parking amendments, Warren Crescent. I'm going to move approval. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Excuse me. Item TE 5.60, parking amendment, Heath Street West. Councillor Matlow.
Move approval.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.61, parking amendments, Hendrick Avenue. Councillor Matlow.
I move approval.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.62, parking amendments, Lonsdale Road. Councillor Matlow.
I move approval.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.63, parking amendments, Merton Street. Councillor Matlow.
I move approval.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We could do this all day. Item TE 5.64, parking amendments, Parkwood Avenue. Councillor Matlow.
The approval is what I move.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.65, parking amendments, Carlaw Avenue. Councillor Fletcher. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.66, parking amendments, Floyd Avenue. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.67, parking amendments, Hampton Avenue. Councillor Fletcher. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.68, all-way stop control, North Cliff Boulevard and Key West Avenue. Councillor Matlow.
I move approval.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.69, traffic control signals, Lumsden Avenue and Cedarvale Avenue. Councillor Bradford.
Just need to hold that.
We'll hold that in Councillor Bradford's name. Item TE 5.70, speed limit reduction, Glen Lake Avenue. I'm going to move the staff recommendation. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for your support on this crucial initiative. Item TE 5.71, speed hump poll results, Delisle Avenue. Councillor Matlow.
I'm both going to move the alternate recommendation and move forward with the humps, and I'm going to speak to it just for a moment, given the community interest in the issue. Recently, we moved forward with implementing speed humps on Heath Street. And this is Delisle is another entrance that people use into the Deer Park neighborhood to avoid Yonge and St. Clair. As you can see, with 58% support, this was a divided issue. I received all sorts of correspondence and diversity of opinion about what to do here. Given, though, the fact that the majority was in support of moving forward with the speed humps, and the Deer Park Residents Group wrote in support of moving with the speed humps. And most importantly, while there's a divided series of opinions, with small but clear majority support, I choose to err on the side of safety. So we're going to move forward with the speed humps, both to make Delisle safer, but hopefully to mitigate the traffic incursion into the neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Item TE 5.72, residential on-street parking permit, results of community consultation and potential implementation plan. Members, a number of you have approached me on this item, and what I'm going to suggest is that we defer it for 2 cycles, partly because of the change in community council boundaries and all of our newly aligned wards. This is going to take a little bit more work before we consider it. So I have a motion to defer it for 2 cycles.
Where are you going?
Please.
What do you mean by 2 cycles? To come back in June, then? We put the date
Yes.
on? It would be the June.
The June 25th meeting.
And I had the streets in my new ward had not been put together yet, and I had to ask Transportation Services to complete that. So I'm assuming that that would happen rather quickly, Mr. Chair, so that everybody can see what the actual streets are within their new wards.
So there are a number of confounding factors having to, on this report. That's one of them. I'll undertake to consult with you all to make sure that when we do consider it, we have all the information we need and an opportunity to speak to our communities.
I guess I'm just asking that that be provided long before the 2 cycles.
I've heard you. Okay?
And I have one question of staff, not to debate the item, but for clarity around even who will be affected by this decision. May I just have an opportunity to ask one question of staff before we proceed?
I mean, you may. I'd encourage you, since we're deferring the item and it's currently in the hands of
I would-
committee,
I
that you
would-
do that
I would-
offline or you ask me.
I would appreciate it. Well, here's the question. and
Sure.
We'll see who knows the answer. Given that Community Council decided to proceed with consultation on this item when the boundaries were different before the election, one example in my ward, or formerly my ward, is that there's an area of Davisville where I'm receiving inquiries where they are now formally part of North York, represented by Councillor Robinson. But at the time, they were in Ward 22, which I represented. They're asking me, will they be, whatever we do now, given that the way that this was written, they were part of this area, will they be subject to the decision we make? And I would like to have an answer to them before we debate this, so they even know if they are part of this discussion, and I know what to tell them, or what Councillor Robinson would tell them.
Right. So I can't give you a precise answer on that right now. I can point you to Mr. Lafredi, who's here, and I would encourage you to go over and speak to him, okay? Deferring this item doesn't produce an outcome yet. That's all I can tell you.
Are there any other members who
I have the
are
opposite
facing the
problem.
same?
I have the opposite problem. Half the people I represent were not consulted, but are now part of Toronto East York Community Council. So there, as I said, there are a number of complicating and confounding factors with this report because of the actions of a premier who doesn't have any regard for the citizens of Toronto, and that's why we're deferring it for 2 months so that we can straighten out these questions.
Fair enough.
Okay? All right. So,
The deferral.
yeah.
I'm speaking to the deferral. I'll support it, but reluctantly, because this has gone on for an awfully long time. We were hoping that this would come back before the end of the last council, our term, and it didn't, and now it's back, and we have these complicating factors with different wards that weren't there, or some people that are leaving, like in your situation. I do understand it to be the Toronto and East York Community Council boundaries, so there have to be other provisions for people that might want to be part of it or not want to be part of it that are outside. And I was very concerned, I am concerned in general that across many departments that things have not yet been aligned to our new wards. So I am supporting this because that has to happen. And the Parks Department hasn't been aligned to our new wards. These streets weren't aligned to our new wards, and I have trouble understanding why, since the election was on October 22nd and the new wards were set in place on September the 14th, how every department hasn't now aligned with brand new wards. That is surprising to me. So I think that as long as we're not coming back to say we have to start at zero, Mr. Chair, and that you're having these consultations with new areas that weren't part of Toronto and East York, my position would be that they weren't in the original, then perhaps they don't have to go forward if they don't wish to. I do have issues, perhaps Councillor Bradford also has them, around the East York Hospital, the Michael Guerin redevelopment, where there's really problems with parking, and a great number of the streets around the hospital don't have permit parking. So this actually sets that back. I'm going to be asking for some more streets to get added on, even in the interim now, because we just have to be able to have people park on the street, since the parking lots that they would normally use at Michael Guerin Hospital are now full of construction vehicles. So I'm disappointed. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I'll reluctantly support this, but I'm very unhappy that this wasn't flagged earlier, that you weren't able to do a consultation earlier, and that we weren't having this here in a fulsome way with all the right information, Mr. Chair.
I'll speak to it.
Okay, Councillor Matlow?
I'll be supporting the request for deferral because it's clear that there are, regardless of what side of this coin you are on, that there's a need for some clarity with respect to even some questions around the ward boundaries and who's involved in this discussion and who's going to be affected by the outcome of the discussion. That being said, though, I do think it's important, given that there was a voice to moving forward with this, to just express a dissenting opinion. That I just, even the process, whether it be exactly these Toronto and East York community boundaries, area boundaries, or if they're finessed slightly, 4 public meetings, 35 people attended. I do not even see a mandate to move forward with such a dramatic change that affects people's day-to-day and night-to-night lives with such little substantive consultation in that respect. It wasn't the fault of staff. It just didn't happen. And I don't think that the average member of the public is aware of this discussion. From those who I've spoken with, though, and for those who are affected, where they are clearly saying to me, and I don't, they may be saying something different to you, is that they want to continue a process of local democracy where the street residents have an opportunity to be asked whether or not they want to choose permit parking or not. And, that is the best form of consultation. So I hope that this deferral really is about figuring out how to do whatever we do well, but not just to figure out how to sort of turn this mess into something better. Because I don't, based on the report in front of us, this doesn't seem like a reasonable thing to proceed with based on what we have. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else to speak to the item? Okay. So on the deferral, all those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Item TE 5.73, temporary community retail identification signs, premises 261 Queens Quay East, adjacent to Merchants Wharf. Councillor Layton?
Yes, thank you very much. I have an indication the local councillor would like to move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Proposed relocation of on-street electrical vehicle charging stations, Wellington Street West. Councillor Layton.
Again, I'd like to move the staff recommendations, please.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.75, TD Toronto Jazz Festival 2019 in Bloor, Yorkville. Councillor, we have a deputant.
So if, in the interest of saving the deputant about 2.5 hours, is the deputant here? Is Emily here? No? Okay,
No,
then
I'm
we can
afraid we'll have to
continue
hold
holding
it down. Okay.
It's not a timed item, but yeah.
Well. So we'll hold it in your name, Councillor Layton?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, why not?
Item TE 5.76, removal of taxi stand, Portland Street. Councillor Layton.
I will move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.77, appointment of public members to the William H. Bill Bolton Arena Board. Councillor Layton.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.78, appointment of stakeholder member to the Moss Park Arena Board. Councillor Wong Tam.
I have a direction from the local councillor about how she'd like to proceed, and it is with the staff recommendations.
We'll just all start handing everything over to
Just
Councillor.
hand it over here. I'll
Give it
just
to
read
you.
staff recommendations.
Absolutely. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Matlow, your quorum. Yeah, okay. Item TE 5.79, Downtown Young BIA 2019 Parklets Programs. Councillor Layton.
This was a letter from me. I'd like to,
Oh, okay.
I believe it was.
Yep.
I'll move the recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.80, waiving fee for Hello Seaton Street event. Councillor Layton.
I'll move the recommendation in the local councillor's letter.
Okay. So before we introduce 81 to 87, I'd like to return to 5.32. That's Councillor Fletcher's. It's 954 through 958 Broadview Avenue and 72 Chester Hill Road, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications preliminary review. Councillor Fletcher.
On this?
Oh, I'm sorry, there is a deputant there. Yes, there is. It's written, yeah. Okay, so thank you, my apologies. We'll hold that for a deputation. Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Okay,
Problem. That's what I'm here for, Mr. Chair.
so with that, members, we now have a number of items of new business that need to be introduced. Items TE 5.81 through 5.87. If I can have a motion to introduce. Councillor Fletcher, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay. Members, do we want to just proceed with those 6 items? Sure. Okay. First item TE 5.81. It's a letter from Councillors Matlow and Layton regarding follow-up to the Avenue Road corridor safety review.
We're doing this together.
I know. Do you want to both just turn on your mics, or yeah, there you go. Okay. Councillor Matlow.
I'm very happy to join my colleague, Councillor Layton, in moving this new business item. This is a request to Transportation Services based on a working group process done by both staff with the support of the local councillors' offices and really driven by local residents. Ratepayers groups, parent councils, local concerned residents who have experienced Avenue Road being treated like a highway every day. Typically, drivers are going 60, 70 kilometers an hour on Avenue Road up and down the hill, and residents have not just said something has to be done, but they've said we want to be part of arriving at a really reasonable and positive decision about what can be done. So these recommendations are coming out of that process. It's been very democratic. It's been a really organic conversation. There have been new ratepayers groups such as South Hill who have been now involved in this discussion, which should have happened earlier, but I'm glad that they're part of it now. And ultimately, any decision that's made, and this is to the audience of the residents who are both excited about where this might go and those who have concerns about where this might go, is that every decision has to be made based on evidence, based on what is genuinely in the best interest of creating a safe environment on Avenue Road. Nothing should be done that will encourage incursion of traffic into the neighborhoods. That is another safety matter that we don't want to exacerbate, but we do want to make sure that Avenue Road is safer. And by the way, in the future, I'll just add on to this, and I don't think you would mind, what I've been discussing with staff, and I imagine others have too, is that Avenue Road should have a real rethink in the future, whether it be redesign, better uses. There have been discussions around even looking at narrowing it in ways where we can even use it for a BRT one day, for example, to provide relief to the overcrowded subway line. But right now, we're looking at thoughtful, immediate things that we can do to make Avenue Road safer.
Thank you. Any other members to speak? No? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. TE 5.82. Councillor Layton has a letter regarding the realignment of permit parking area 5E to exclude 33 Yorkville Avenue. Councillor Layton.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move the recommendations in the letter. This is in relation to a development proposal that reduced the amount of parking. We're just making sure that that isn't pushed out.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Doing it.
Item TE 5.83, Councillor Fletcher has a letter regarding Broadview and Danforth intersection safety review.
Yes, I do. I'd like to move that recommendation in my letter.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.84, Councillor Fletcher has a letter regarding traffic calming on Milverton Boulevard.
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation in my letter, which
All those in favor, opposed,
approves the
carried.
request for the study.
Item TE 5.85, Councillor Fletcher has a letter regarding Villiers Street pay and display.
Now, I think there's a second. Yes. Correct. That's just, there's a lot of people parking there and no revenue. So,
Okay, so
Money.
on Councillor Fletcher's amendment, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.86, Councillor Fletcher has a letter regarding ensuring driveway access off Danforth Avenue.
these are just two businesses that have driveways onto the Danforth that people are regularly covering, so there would be the logical signs on each side that indicated you can't park there. I'd like to move that.
Okay, on the recommendations, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.87, Councillor Fletcher has a letter regarding heritage evaluation of 245 Logan.
I'd like to move that, and there's a time for that to come back, I believe, to Preservation Board.
Okay, all those in
Mind.
favor, opposed, carried. All right.
I do have two other letters I'm going to be putting in this morning.
Okay, I don't have those
No, I
in
know
front of
you
me
don't
yet,
yet.
so we'll get to them.
No, that's fine.
We'll get to them later in the
Advising the
meeting.
chair.
We'll get to them later in the meeting.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, very good. All right. We'll now move to our timed items. Item TE 5.1, naming of an existing public lane north of College Street extending between Crawford Street and Montrose Street. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Layton.
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendations in the report.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.2, naming of an existing public lane bounded by Harvard Street, Palmerston Boulevard, Ulster Street, and Euclid Avenue. Councillor Layton.
Again, I'd like to
Oh,
approve.
sorry, I have to call for deputations. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Layton.
I'd like to move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.3, renaming of a portion of Pears Avenue extending west of Yonge Street. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Layton.
This is to commemorate an Ojibwe author, Basil Johnston. I'd like to move the recommendations in the report.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.4, naming of an existing public lane west of Yonge Street extending north from Wellesley Street west. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Okay, this is Councillor Wong Tam's. We have no instructions here?
I don't think she knew where that we would be this far along, so I didn't have any
Okay.
direction on this. Apologies.
I'm going to hold this in my name and we'll revisit it later in the day. Item TE 5.5, 871-899 College Street zoning amendment application and rental housing demolition applications. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none. Councillor Bradford, do you have any advice for us? That's Councillor Bailau's ward. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.6, 170. Sorry, yes?
Apologies, I was looking at 5.7. That was 5.5.
Yes.
I'd like to defer that to May on behalf of the local.
Okay, motion to reopen. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Motion to defer. All those in favor, opposed,
you.
carried. And that's deferred to the May 22nd meeting. Okay, thank you. Item TE 5.6, 170 Spadina Avenue and 3, 5, and 7 Cameron Street rental housing demolition application and Section 37 matters, final report. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none. Uh-oh. Councillor Layton, this is 5.6 in Councillor Cressy's ward.
5.6 is move the staff recommendations, please.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Ollie, we're just zipping through today. Item TE 5.7, 1025 DuPont Street, Common Elements Condominium and Part Lot Control Exemption Applications, final results. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none. Councillor Bradford.
We have a local councillor and want to move the staff recommendations, please.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Would that every day could be this productive. TE 5.8, 485 Logan Avenue Site Plan Control Application, final report. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Fletcher.
Have some motions there.
Okay. All right, members, if you have had a chance to review, take it on Councillor Fletcher's amendments and the item. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.9, 1 Front Street West and 141 Bay Street, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications refusal report.
On a point of order, Councillor Perks, might I make the following suggestion? Given there are deputants on this file and it's
Yes.
Councillor Cressy's, in Councillor Cressy's ward, that we move through the items, the rest of the 10 a.m. items that have deputants, and return to that 10 a.m. item after, so he has the benefit of being in the room when the deputants speak. I do have direction, so if we need to go to that
No,
item,
that's
I'm
good.
happy to. Perhaps after the other 10 a.m. PM items, we can move on to the non-timed items. I think there's only one with a deputant. There's like 6
Okay,
of them.
let's do one thing at
Okay.
a time.
Gotcha.
On item T 5.9, there's a proposal to hold it off until Councillor Cressy can return. He had told me that he was likely to be back at 10:30, maybe a little longer than that, so it won't be a significant delay. On that, all in favor, opposed, carried, okay. So we'll move to TE 5.10, which is 598 and 596R Rushton Road, zoning bylaw amendment application, request for directions report. We do have a deputant, Ezra Braves. Ezra, are you here? You're waving your right? Just waving it away. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Matlow.
Well, given how influential Ezra's deputation was, I'm going to support the staff recommendation.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.11, inclusion on the city's heritage registrar, 28, 38 through 52, and 66 through 74 Belmont Street.
Again, on a point of order, my apologies, Councillor Perks. Because I know you're strict to the code that we must follow in these meetings. This is a 10:30 item, and we are but 3 minutes shy of 10:30.
Everyone talk amongst yourselves.
No, just
3
this
minutes.
is where we can proceed through the agenda of the non-timed. I'm sorry, you don't get a point of order. It's just if someone came in and it was still before 10:30, we wouldn't be able to hear the
Actually,
item.
you know what?
Are we allowed
Been
to?
advised by the clerk
All right.
that because the first deputation will take us over the 10:30 item, that anyone who
Bingo.
was
Sure.
planning to be here for 10:30 will have an opportunity to hear everyone.
Fantastic.
And we've used up most of the 3 minutes anyway. Can I call on Arlene Wolf? Arlene, are you here? Arlene, please come forward. Just sit right there. Yeah. Arlene, are you going to be using your laptop for an overhead or just to read from? Okay. That reminds me, I should alert people. If you're making a deputation and you have a laptop and you want it projected on the screen, please, well in advance of your item, go over to the AV booth. This incredibly talented gentleman will get you all sorted out. Okay, so Arlene, the way it works, you have 5 minutes to make a deputation. There's a clock up here to my right that you can watch, and welcome.
Introduced in a little bit. It is. Okay, I actually thought someone would be giving a brief history of this matter, so if it's okay, I will. My name is Arlene Wolf, and I'm an owner of the 2.5-story gray-painted detached house at 28 Belmont Street. I've lived there and owned the house since January 2014. The picture in the material is incorrect. It shows, I believe, the original brick, and my house was painted brick. I don't know when, but sometime before I moved in. This matter, listing on the Heritage Registrar, came up sometime in March, when most of the people whose houses were involved were either away. It was served, notice was served by courier because the Heritage Board wanted to give us 5 days notice. I've looked into it, and basically they don't have to give us any notice whatsoever, but they did go to the expense of sending notice by courier. There is presently a study, the Belmont Hillsborough study, which was commenced in 2015, and I believe there's only been one meeting in connection with that study. I attended that meeting, and the process set out there provides for consultation and sets out the number of meetings, and it's very residents involved. The listing here is not resident involved at all, and there's no consultation. It was not commenced at the impetus of any of the residents on the street. The person who's speaking after me is a bit of the historian on the street, and she applied to have her house listed, and one other person whose house is being listed applied. None of the other houses, and I believe it's 12, that are impacted, and we're all, I think various letters have been filed, we're all against the listing for various reasons, which cover increased insurance, increased costs. I've offered to give an undertaking to the city because my insurance is going to increase by about 30% if my house is listed. Apparently, the listing only gives the city the requirement that 90 days notice has to be given of demolition. I've said I have no intention of demolishing my house. I have no intention of doing anything to it. I do have, as an aside, a brick problem. It's starting to deteriorate because the house was built in 1885. Because of that, I'm probably going to have to do some exterior work. But in the material that the Heritage Board filed, it only shows that the thing that makes my house historical and architecturally interesting is the stone around the windows. Everything else in my house has been changed on the exterior well before I moved in. I'd like to point out to you that the existence of the study, rather than just the listing, provides for the whole area, Hillsborough and Belmont, to be designated historical. The designation of these 14 houses means that the whole block, there's 3 actually series of townhouses, and then there's a few detached houses. The first block of townhouses was drastically renovated in 1962-63 by a renowned architect. At that time, several of the houses were designated. The rest of the street was not designated. As people have moved in, they've asked, if they've wanted it, they've asked for their house to be designated, and it has. Most of the other people are relying on the historical, on the Belmont historical study. Now, that study is very important because it provides for consultation, and it provides for the whole area. It's my understanding that the Heritage Board cannot designate whole streets as historical. And what's happening here is, and I've asked, there's several outstanding issues that I've put to the board that have not been answered. One of them is, why is the townhouse, the row house next to me not being designated? And why are the 3 houses to the west of me not being designated? And I've been told that basically they can't designate the whole street. So why pick and choose? It doesn't make sense to everybody that only some people's insurance is going to go up and not others. So in brief, I would like this matter deferred. One, so that there can be changes done at the Heritage Board level and the picture of my house changed so that it's the correct picture. I don't think it's right that you have an older picture in when my house has already had a lot of exterior work on it.
Arlene, can I ask you to conclude, please?
The other thing, I'd like it deferred, or I'd like it actually to go back to, and let's just rely on the heritage study.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions of the deputant? No? Arlene, thank you very much. The next deputant I have listed is Sheila Latham. Sheila, are you here? Hi, come on forward. Good morning. You have 5 minutes, and you'll be able to watch your time on the clock up here to my right.
Thank you. My name is Sheila Latham, and I live with my husband, David, at 42 Belmont Street. We support the recommendations of Heritage Preservation Services and the Toronto Preservation Board to add 14 houses on Belmont Street to the Heritage Register. A broad perspective and long-term vision is especially important because, as we all know, the ownership of houses changes. For example, the owners of the 2 adjacent houses on either side of our house have changed a total of 6 times in the 4 years since 2015. The owners have changed, but the heritage value of these houses remains the same. David and I have lived at number 42 for 24 years, but we consider ourselves as just temporary stewards among generations of owners who have loved the heritage of Belmont Street houses since the 1870s and 1880s. We are fortunate for all the owners on Belmont that have preserved the heritage attributes of the streetscape that we value today. In our own way, we have become guardians of our city's heritage. However, even since 1999, we have lost several historic houses at the west end of our street, including 2 of the oldest houses in Toronto, 2 Ontario cottages dating from the 1840s. So we appreciate the recognition of the street's heritage value and the need to help protect 14 unlisted houses, so clearly articulated in the recommendations from Heritage Preservation Services and supported by the Toronto Preservation Board, the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, the Belmont-Hillsborough Heritage Interest Group, and the ABC Residents Association. We ask the council members to please add your support to this motion to list these 14 historic houses. Thank you.
Are there any questions of the deputant? No? Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public who want to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none. Are there any questions of staff?
If I would be
item?
permitted, just ask a couple of questions.
Okay.
One, just on the picture of the property at 28 Belmont, has the new picture been submitted?
Yes, we, through the chair, Heritage Preservation Services has provided, and it was included and posted on the website via clerks, indicating the 2 primary elevations that we're interested in and were referenced in the report.
Okay, thank you. This notion of increased insurance, can you just review that? I've heard it before, but there seems to be some pretty good resources about this that indicate there is no increase in insurance.
Yes, and through the chair, the provincial government, the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport, has for several years had information on insurance and heritage that relates to designated properties specifically, and with the Insurance Bureau of Canada saying that it should not in any way increase the premiums for insurance. However, I should say that it is an industry-wide concern about how agents are representing or understanding it. So it is a broader understanding or issue that needs to be addressed. However, our indication from not only from the provincial government but from the Insurance Bureau, essentially the Ontario Heritage Act does not require you to have your insurance to replace in kind. The problems are often related to, as an older building, other factors such as wiring, et cetera. Just to note that this is a recommendation for listing. It has no legal status on the property. So, in fact, it is not a matter of concern.
So this notion of an undertaking, we've made the request to find out, is that something the city can or does? Can you just give us some insight?
So with respect to, just to clarify, you mean for the issue of insurance itself?
No, an undertaking not to demolish the property.
Right. So with the reason or the background for us on this particular initiative was stemming from a heritage conservation district that council asked us to deal with. We've since that authorization in 2016, we've looked at it again to try and prioritize. In the meanwhile, we look to having this protection of listing because there have been several Committee of Adjustment applications for demolition. I can't tell you the statistics, but it has occurred over the past 4 years. So it's just a pattern or a trend. And for us, I think the issue is that we need to be able to be informed as opposed to rushing for responding to a demolition. So it gives clarity and good information in advance to a property owner.
So you answered my next question about how this evolved, but the question I was asking was very specific to the deputant has suggested that they would enter into some kind of legal undertaking with the city not to demolish their home without notification. And when we asked staff offline,
Yes.
this was just not something that we did. And so I'm just wondering,
Yes.
Can you give any clarity?
Sure, through the chair. A two-party agreement, other than a heritage conservation agreement, which is registered on title of the property, is the only applicable law that we could deal with. Otherwise, the listing on a heritage register is the applicable law that the building department will look to.
Okay. And just finally, on the issue with the neighboring houses not being listed, did you examine those neighboring houses? There's a pair of semis and I believe a row of 3.
Right. Yes, in doing, as part of not only looking at one individual property when we're looking at the heritage evaluation, especially in this context of row houses, we look to the full collection, and as noted in the staff report, and the properties at 30, 32, 34, and 54 did not meet the provincial criteria of Regulation 906, which indicates whether or not there is determination of cultural heritage value. So we did do that. We don't publish the analysis of when it doesn't meet. We only provide the advice to which we're seeking council's endorsement and adoption for those to which they do.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions of staff? No? Councillor Layton.
I'll move the staff recommendations. We had deferred this from the last meeting to give an opportunity for some local residents who had not been really consulted as much as they could have been because of the nature of this process. This started a long time ago. There was a lot of changing, there was a lot of turnover of property, and so some of the original owners, or some owners now weren't the original owners when the process was begun. So I understood and sympathize for the lack of consultation on the matter. I'm satisfied though that our staff have had the opportunity to communicate to the residents and address and answer some of their questions and concerns, that they can. And the reality is, and I feel, having been at the deliberation for the Heritage Preservation Board on this, that these properties on Belmont are indeed worthy of protection. If you've ever driven down Belmont, you'll know they prefer you to walk, but there's a different it's a different feeling when you're walking down the street. The character of the buildings and to the entire that entire row is unmistakable. That there is a distinct character to the buildings and to that street as a whole. I realize that this is a slightly unconventional way of listing properties because we're doing so by a batch listing rather than a Heritage Conservation District. But the reality is we're not going to get the Heritage Conservation District anytime in the near future. And as staff have explained, these properties are under regular threat. We had one at the Committee of Adjustment just weeks ago, where the residents were standing up to fight a very drastic change to the character of that one property and of the whole street. When you're looking at a townhouse, what that might do and the chain reaction that might have. And so I thank the staff. I thank the residents for their interest and their persistence on the file. At one point, I suggested when the for sale sign went up, the for sale sign went up while the property was at the Committee of Adjustment, saying there are alternate plans. Not saying that they hadn't been approved, but there were alternate plans. And I had encouraged the neighbors to put up signs saying we do not approve of those alternate plans. I don't think they did. But it would have been creative, and I think a good way of making a point to any prospective buyers that you're buying into to a piece of Toronto's history and a piece of Toronto heritage. And while I think that all the residents, even if they oppose the listing, I believe that they in fact support and want to live in the neighborhood with the existing character. It's just we may disagree on the path to get there and to protect it. And often that's the case even in this chamber. We agree on the final position that we want to arrive at, but where we disagree is on what directions we should take. And so I hope the community will go back and, having settled this matter at City Hall, and let's get back into the business of building a really great and strong community. So I'll move the staff recommendations and thank the previous local councillor who started the process.
Before I take the next speaker, your morning smile. I understand that a representative of a provincial cabinet minister is currently running away from a media scrum in the building. Just thought you'd want to know. Anyone else to speak on this? Councillor Matlow.
Yeah, I want to, first of all, support the local councillor and the former local councillor's efforts to support recommendations to preserve our, in this context, our architectural heritage, but both our cultural and architectural heritage is important to Toronto's story. And we've done, I think, over generations, a very poor job at protecting our story the way that other cities have here in North America and around the world. What heritage preservation staff is doing, our heritage planning staff rather, is doing now, is exactly what council has requested of them time and time and time again, which is to be more proactive in ensuring that we have the tools in our toolbox to be thoughtful about considering whether or not a building should be demolished. It doesn't mean it will or will not be demolished in the future based on its individual merits, but it allows us to at least hold the reins and consider whether or not it should be preserved. You all may remember, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, there was a building, an old Bank of Montreal building north of Yonge and Eglinton. It was in Councillor Carmichael Greb's ward at the time. And residents in Linden Park were shocked when this building was demolished. And they were furious at the city because the city said legally they had to provide a demolition permit. They were furious at heritage preservation staff for not doing something. The reality was nobody had actually bothered to request that it be listed. What listing means, and this is to the audience of those who fear it, it doesn't mean it's it's preserved in stone in a way that there isn't any opportunity for thoughtful consideration about any reasonable changes in the future. It doesn't mean that it is sterilized in some way. It means that rather than just being demolished because they have a right to demolish it, it means that we have an opportunity for 60 days to consider whether or not there should be preservation. That's reasonable, it's responsible, and I just want to, along with commending the local councillor and the former local councillor, I want to commend our heritage planning staff, because they're actually doing exactly what we keep asking them to do. We say, here are only a few resources to be able to preserve the whole city, and we want you to be proactive, and we want you to do your job, and that's exactly what they're doing, and I really respect the work that they're doing, and thank you very much.
Any other members? Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, and just very quickly, and then also to thank the deputants for all your, I recognize that this has been a long-time community endeavor. It dates back over 10 years and before then, even though there has been a request to put together the Hillsborough Belmont HCD, I know that given the volume of HCD requirements and work that is before city staff and how they categorize which one goes first, Belmont and Hillsborough was always going to be somewhere in the middle of the pack and the end of the pack. So this particular body of work that's taken place with the batch listing is exactly, I would say, where we need to go with a lot more neighborhoods that are this sort of under the threat of CFA applications as well as rezoning. And the village of Yorkville and the northern edge of it is one of the most beautiful and iconic neighborhoods in the city. I miss it very much. But I also think that it's been in very good hands of political leadership of trying to steward it along, and also, of course, more importantly, the residents have been the biggest champions of trying to galvanize public interest, galvanize public support to say there's something very special about this pocket, this little patch in Toronto, and it's not just for the area residents, but it's for everybody. And if we can all just work together to get to an outcome, and I believe that that good outcome came today. So thank you very much for your participation, and also to staff for your hard work. It's not easy to sort of list 14 properties at once. It takes a significant volume of research, and I know that given the limited resources that HPS does have, they've leveraged and maximized that time and energy extremely well to this outcome. So thank you. And thank you, of course, to our new councillor here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Members, a few moments ago,
Just on a point of personal privilege, to your comment earlier, Councillor Perks, did the province send hecklers to your press conference, Councillor Cressy? Was that, Lauren, the CBC is reporting that there was a heckler from Minister Elliott's office. Is that accurate?
I'll accept that as a point of privilege.
Oh.
Councillor Cressy, do you have anything to enlighten us with?
Only that I agree with the mayor and the medical officer of health that when you cut $1 billion to Toronto public health, people's health will be negatively impacted.
That's called a message box. Members, a few moments ago, we skipped over item TE 5.4 because the local councillor was out of the room. This is naming of an existing public lane west of Yonge Street extending north from Wellesley Street West. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none. Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to move the staff recommendation and to formally name this particular stretch called Bistro Lane. And there's been a series of historical and iconic restaurants that have always sort of sat at that particular corner. And I think that the Residents Association from the Bay Clover area and the CWNA, this really meant a lot to them, and they've worked on, of course, every single naming in the old Ward 27 and now the new Ward 13. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. This takes us to item TE 5.12, inclusion on the Heritage Register, an intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, 28 and 30 Langley Avenue. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none. Councillor Fletcher.
Please.
On the motion, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Councillor Cressy, you're back amongst us. We had some deputations listed for an item in your ward, and we thought it would be best if you were here to hear them. So what I'd like to propose, members, is that we go to TE 5.9, which is 1 Front Street West and 141 Bay Street, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications, refusal report. I have 3 listed speakers at this point. First, Art Phillips of Larco Developments. Art? Thank you very much. You have 5 minutes.
Members of committee, my name is Art Phillips, Director of Development with Larco Investments, and I'm here today to ask for a deferral on the action that's being proposed by staff. For the past 2 years, we have worked with the community in consulting with them as well as with the BIA, the current councillor, and the previous 2 councillors on this application. We stated at last on April the 1st, which was another community consultation meeting called by the city pertaining to this application. We stated publicly that we intended to amend our application. It is our desire not to go to LPAT, but rather to continue to work with staff and also, more importantly, in our opinion, to work with the community in developing a project which everybody will take ownership. It's our desire to have an application come forward that is strongly supported by staff. We recognize that the staff were required to write their refusal report based on the submission as made, and as stated, it is our intent to make an amendment. We have already instructed our architect, Architects Alliance, to begin the redesign process of the project, and by deferral, it's going to give us sufficient time to work with staff, but as well as with the community, as previously stated, in getting a development that is going to be desired by the broader community. Timing-wise, we need a minimum of 6 months, we believe, in order to do a redesign, to properly facilitate and to deal with the community. What we did at the start of this process, before even beginning design, we met with the community. Our desire this time is to get a preliminary design, which is an amendment to our current application, go back to the community to get their reaction, but also to continue to work with staff. So once again, I ask that this committee defer the recommendation and allow us to proceed in a public consultation process. Thank you.
Are there any questions of the deputy? Councillor Cressy.
Just a question. Thank you, Art, for being here. I'm sure you can understand the concern that staff may have if an appeal were to come. And so I guess a question I have is, would you be prepared to put in writing a commitment not to appeal this application before that the resubmission comes in and our staff have the chance to report on it?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I think those are all my questions at the moment. Thank you.
Any other members? No? Thank you very much. Peter Smith.
I guess I can use this one here. Just further from what Art was saying, there is a letter on your agenda today from Cynthia McDougall from McCarthy Tetro, setting out the reasons for the request for deferral. Fundamentally, we think this is a matter that can be resolved constructively. And what we're really asking for is a chance to do that, to proceed through the normal process with staff, and ultimately to come back in front of Community Council and Council without involving the local planning appeal tribunal in this matter. I know, because of our involvement on lots of files, that there's been a lot of discussion over the past number of years about OMB reform and about the need to be able to resolve challenges, problems, disputes amongst ourselves without involving a provincial body. And this is a client here who wants to do exactly that. We've been clear to staff. We were actually meeting with Henry Tang and David Sitt when they advised us that this refusal report was coming forward. We asked them not to bring forward a refusal report because we didn't want to end up having this application be in the hands of the local planning appeal tribunal in terms of coming to a resolution. I think you all know, at least anecdotally, that things are a mess at the local planning appeal tribunal, even with staff's suggestion that we try the reconciliation or mediation route at the local planning appeal tribunal. We are just fundamentally concerned that if we get into that process, that it's going to be a cumbersome process, it's going to be a legal, litigious process. We don't think that that's necessary in this case. Staff's concern, the way it was expressed to us, is that under Bill 139, there's a requirement within 210 days for staff to put their concerns formally in writing. That's now being done through the refusal report. And it's our opinion, and Cynthia McDougall has laid it out in her letter, that simply receiving the staff report and deferring consideration will allow those concerns to be noted on the public record, because it would form part of the public record. And certainly by deferring the report, the effect of it will be to allow us to continue to work forward with staff and come to a constructive solution. And in my opinion, this is a circumstance where I'm really confident that if given the chance to do it, we're going to be able to come to a solution with staff. So thanks very much. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. How refreshing to hear that applicants would rather deal with the city than the appeal body. Are there any questions of the deputy? No? Seeing none? I next have Janice Fuser. Janice, are you here? I've never called you Janice before.
Now you know. So good morning. This is my colleague David Anderson. We're here today with the Hats of the Communities for Sustainable Development. And in light of the conversation that just happened, we'll keep our remarks really brief. We just wanted to reiterate the merits of the many concerns brought up by the city report. This is an extremely significant site, both in terms of location and heritage value, and it's worth taking the time to get development on this site right, including the heritage component, maximizing employment uses, affordable housing, and so on, and we look forward to being part of that going forward, that process going forward. You have anything to?
Yeah, I just wanted to... Sorry, my name's David Anderson.
Hi, David.
Hi, I just wanted to second what JJ said and also thank staff for all the work that they've done on this file. Also with this iteration and the previous iteration that was here a few years ago.
That's it for us.
Are there any questions for JJ or David? No, seeing none? Thank you very much. I'm going to call you Janice from now on. Okay. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? I don't see any. Oh, Ms. McDougall has words for us. She's given me the eye.
Sorry, I'm only here to indicate that if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them with respect to our request, and to indicate to you that this is actually made in absolute good faith in terms of the commitment to not appeal and to amend the application. And the world of Bill 139, in terms of the way it goes, it actually creates a totally litigious relationship, which is not desired by the particular client, and it's not the way they've been conducting themselves. So I just wanted to indicate, though, if there were any other questions, I'm here.
I have a question. So, Ms. McDougall, so you have some experience in these matters. My understanding is there's a regulatory requirement, well, to the extent that anybody does. There's a regulatory requirement that the city take a position on the application.
No, there isn't a regulatory requirement per se that you take a decision on the application. And if you, in fact, make a decision, then you force me to appeal. So that is why when Councillor Cressy asked the very, I thought, prescient question, which was, would you agree not to appeal to allow for the application to be amended? That's really the answer. Because what I understand the city is doing, and I respect that, is because if I were to appeal based on delay, the council wouldn't have had information in front of it with respect to its concerns. But if it actually makes a decision, it then triggers a different process. And Bill 139 does not allow, per se, for me to, after I appeal, to make an amended application in the way that legacies do.
I see.
And I wish I was making this up, but I'm not.
Perhaps in future, applicants could give us whatever it is they want to finish with instead of a bargaining position. It's a thought.
Well, then the counselor wouldn't be able to come in and negotiate with the community and have an important role for recommending what the community wants.
It's a puzzler, isn't it? It's a puzzler.
And there's so many leaders around the table who are so good at it, so,
Oh, look at that. You're buttering us up.
okay.
Any other questions for Ms. McDougall? Nope. Thanks, Cynthia. Any other members of the public who wish to make a deputation? No. Any questions of staff? Councillor Cressy.
Thank you. So to our staff, whether it's to planning or legal, are there risks associated with a deferral, even a deferral that's done in good faith?
Brian, you want me to? There certainly are risks under the new Bill 139 regime, and that's why you have before you today a report by City Planning that is a refusal. I believe the timeframe for appeal due to a non-decision by City Council is approaching, and that's why you see the report before you. And certainly having the direction of Council with a very firm decision and analysis by City Planning with respect to the tests under the new regime puts the city in a far better position than to have a non-decision. I would also add that there's absolutely nothing that that forces Ms. McDougall's client to appeal the application to TLAB, and my understanding is that City Planning is more than prepared to continue to work with her client even in the event that Council does adopt the refusal report.
And so I guess then to planning, the applicant has indicated a desire and a willingness to revise the application more in line with city staff's feedback. If the refusal report is adopted, is there still the opportunity for city planning staff and the community to engage with the applicant to that outcome?
So through the chair, there absolutely is the opportunity. You'll see in the recommendations that we've included for Council that we have utilized a special provision that's under the Planning Act, which allows us to essentially do a timeout on the appeal and allow us to continue discussions and negotiations before the matter gets sent to the LPAT.
And is that something, that provision for a potential timeout in this circumstance, that you would be looking to utilize?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's voluntary. Obviously, the applicant would have to agree to it.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, thank you. Just sort of, if you can give us the history to the file, how long has the applicant been with the application in front of Heritage as well as planning staff? How long have you been working with the applicant before even the application came in? Pre-application submission, is it a year, 2 years? And how many meetings have you had with them?
To you, Mr. Chair, the proposal that's in front of us was submitted in June 2018. Prior to that, we did have a series of preliminary meetings. City planning staff had a series of preliminary meetings with the applicant based on the proposal. That's more or less what's being presented. Throughout those pre-consultations with city planning staff, we've iterated that and reiterated that the proposal at that current form cannot be supported. And through the submission, we have articulated those thoughts consistently.
And so when the applicant now appears before us and says that there's opportunities for them to revise the submission or that they would be perhaps more agreeable to working with you now, there were opportunities that were afforded to them even before this report was tabled to specifically provide planning staff and Heritage with some of those opportunities to accommodate the request. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And is there a reason why they did not do that before this report was tabled?
I cannot speculate on that.
And is there any, does adopting this report put the city in a stronger position in going forward?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions of staff? No. Councillor Cressy.
So I was going to say to speak, but that's what you normally say. I'll begin by moving the staff recommendations. Let me state at the outset in this case that we have an applicant who has been working exceptionally closely, proactively, and I believe heading towards a very positive outcome with the city and with the local community. It's not perfect. In fact, they have acknowledged that the design in front of us has to be significantly redone, and they intend to do that. Under a different legal model, we might be able to say, okay, let's all defer, let's all stand down, and let's avoid any potential legal process. But our hands are tied. In order to put us in the best possible position, we have to move forward with this refusal report, which does not in any way preclude us, as we've heard from planning staff, from jointly asking for a timeout on the legal process in order to achieve that outcome of a proposal that meets the city's best interests, the community, and the applicant. And so that is the legal process in which we operate, and thus our hands are tied. And I will be moving the staff recommendations and look forward to working closely both with Larco Investments as well as the community and city planning staff to achieve that outcome. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak? Seeing none, on Councillor Cressy's motion, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, I believe next we have TE 5.13, refusal of an application for a Boulevard Cafe permit located at 663 through 665 King Street West. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? No? Are there any questions of staff? Councillor Cressy? Councillor Cressy? Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none. To speak, Councillor Cressy. This is 513.
I'm going to move to defer indefinitely as we're dealing with a hydro pole issue, and once we have addressed that, we will be moving to bring it back. Thank you.
Okay. On the motion, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 5.14, refusal of an application for a Boulevard Cafe permit located at 104 Portland Street. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Are there any questions of staff? To speak, Councillor Cressy.
I have an amendment, if it can be moved, which is to permit with conditions that have been agreed to. And with that amendment, I can proceed.
All right. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.15, refusal of a Boulevard Cafe permit application located at 191 College Street, Henry Street flankage. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? I don't see any. Councillor Layton, or sorry, any questions of staff? No? Councillor Layton to speak? Motion to withdraw. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Guys, we're whipping through. Item TE 5.16, refusal of an application for a Boulevard Cafe permit located at 356 College Street, Brunswick Avenue flankage. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Are there any questions of staff? To speak, Councillor Layton.
Between the community and the applicant, but I'll need a little bit more time, so I have a motion to defer. I will, though, say that if anyone's listening that wants to get a patio granted, when you aren't in a good negotiating position with the local community association, don't go to the media. Just it doesn't bode well on the relationships with anybody. But in this case, we'll make it through.
Councillor Layton, is that an indefinite deferral, a single cycle?
That is a deferral of one cycle.
One cycle. Yeah. Thank you very much. On the motion, all those in favor, opposed, carried.
Promise not to defer again.
Item TE 5.17, refusal of a Boulevard Cafe permit application located at 596 College Street, Clinton, Flankage. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation? Seeing none, are there any questions of staff? No. To speak, Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much. I have a motion to approve with conditions. Like, come on, it's an 11-seat patio.
I can see my way clear to supporting 11.
Okay, good.
Anyone else? No? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.18, refusal of an application for a Boulevard Cafe permit located at 800 Dundas Street West, Palmerston Avenue, Flankage. I have Andrew Chabursky from the Old School Restaurant listed as a deputant. Andrew, are you here? Hi, Andrew. Come on up.
Going this quickly, but
Have a seat. You have 5 minutes. You'll be able to watch your clock over there to my right.
I'll just be brief. First of all, thank you for the council staff and letting me speak. And I just basically wanted to put a face to the application. It's very important to us and we take it seriously, so wanted to be here. My two managers are here as well. I believe that we're part of the fabric of the neighborhood. We're a community cafe. Our biggest thing is that we do brunches on Saturdays, Sundays. We have a lot of community that comes in, supports us. The three people right behind us, the first three dwellers, say they love our place. They've been there many times, even though I haven't met them. And we have women with mothers with strollers. We have little community events. We have a coffee and careers day during the day, things like that. So just want to make it really brief. If there's any questions for me, that's fine. But I just wanted to show up. That's why.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the deputy? No? Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? No? Are there any questions of staff? No? To speak, Councillor Layton.
Motion? Yep, on item 18. This is to approve the application with some conditions.
Okay, any questions of the mover? No? Anyone else to speak? No? On the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.19, refusal of a curbside cafe permit application located at 997 Bay Street, St. Joseph Street, Flankage. I have two deputants listed. First, Keith Holland. Hi, Keith, come on forward. Just take a seat. You'll have 5 minutes and you can watch your time over here to my right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. So my name is Keith Holland. I live at 1001 Bay Street, Unit 304. And I felt the need to come here to support this recommendation that the application for this Boulevard Cafe be refused based on what we've experienced over the last approximately 2.5 years. Our apartment is 2 stories above the bar. Between us and the bar, the story is mainly condominium facilities, so we're the first residential floor. Since the bar opened in the fall of 2016, their activities have created a lot of problems for us. We've been subjected to extremely loud music with a heavy bass beat well into the night. We've been subjected to amplified voices of a DJ or an MC with the accompanying screaming of the crowd late into the night. We sometimes hear their TV when they're using that as an event. So basically, we've had a lot of time where we're unable to sleep, and even once the noise stops, we're so agitated that we don't get to sleep for some hours afterwards. When they first opened, we approached them, we talked to them. They basically explained to us that to create the ambience they needed in their bar, they needed loud music with a heavy beat. We left there with an agreement that if we were bothered, we would phone down and they would turn it down. I wasn't particularly happy with it, but it was at least a step forward. That worked fine until they stopped answering their phone. So from there, I approached our condominium board, our property manager, who've spent a lot of time helping me, putting pressure on the bar. I've contacted, through email and phone calls, our councillor. I have worked with the Metro Municipal Licensing Standards people. I phoned the mayor's office when I got excited, when I realized they were reviewing noise laws, to find that what I'm worried about wasn't in their purview. So I really think that what I am worried about is as important as a noisy motorcycle going by, but somehow it didn't seem to be necessary for them to review it. So basically, for the last 2.5 years, we've had to deal with this obtrusive noise, often, and as I say, mostly late into the night. The thought of them getting a patio, to me, is just, to me, it's going to exacerbate the problem we're already dealing with. That the problem hasn't been totally solved. We still have nights where we have this late night noise going on. So I just felt it was necessary for me to come and voice. I've been doing a lot of complaining. I wanted to come and voice once again my opposition to this bar getting any more leeway. They've treated us obviously with disdain, and just not a noise issue, just to sort of give another idea of how they are. They have parking in our underground garage. They often just park in the laneway, causing obstructions and obstacles to other people who want to drive through. They've been told about it many times. They just keep doing it. And that, I think, has been our experience with them. We complain, they do it again. We complain, they do it again. So I really do support this refusal, because I think if they got a patio, it would just make things much, much, much worse. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions to the deputy? No? Thank you very much. Next, I have listed Lars Iverson. Good morning, Lars.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So I'm also from 1001 Bay, and I actually represent MTCC 876. I'm on the board of directors and the president of the building. And I just wanted to reconfirm everything that Keith has said, that since the Striker Sports Bar started in 2016, we have had a lot of noise complaints from residents in the building. And in fact, the bar owners has already applied to the building to allow them to use our corporation's property as an outdoor patio. And that request we have declined as a corporations, because we are living in a residential area, not in a bar area. And we have had numerous complaints about noise from the Striker Bar that we have been trying to deal with the landlords or the owner of the commercial property in our building, but also to the tenant of Striker Bar. Also, a lot of our residents has also sent noise complaints to the city MLEO office, and also wrote to Councillor Wong Tam, who is here today. And we have also been communicating with the property management, the bar owners, requesting their compliance not to make noise, so our residents can sleep properly during the night. So we also believe that the bar's application for the Boulevard Cafe privileges has been processed under misunderstanding or misinterpretation of the property boundaries, as part of the subject area is the MTCC 876 common element and cannot be used or leased without the corporation's consent, to which we have declined. So I can only support that this boulevard being refused to be established. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Lars? No? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Hello, please come forward. If you can just have a seat and maybe tell us your name.
Yes, my name is Julia Manakova, and I'm a resident of the 26 St. Joseph building.
Okay.
And my windows, my bedroom windows face the strikers. And I would like to echo the concerns expressed by the two gentlemen who just spoke before me. And I have filled out previously the vote, and I voted against opening the cafe for the same reasons. I just saw some blueprint of the buildings with the notions of the thickness of the walls and tallness of the buildings. None of that matters. What matters is that I wake up in the middle of the night because of the noise from strikers. And I'm afraid that once the cafe opens up to outside, that noise will only become louder, and there will be fights that occur currently from time to time. And I think I came to this country to have a good life, and that includes good sleep. With the strikers opening the cafe, it's going to be impossible. And I would like you to please take that into consideration. They have been trouble to begin with, and it's going to get concerns, it's going to get worse. So I have rearranged my work schedule specifically to come to this meeting, even though I have already voted. It's very important to the tenants of the building. Some of us couldn't rearrange their work schedule. I've done everything I could to be able to come and say, please do not support that application. It cannot go worse than that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Seeing none. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? No? Any questions of staff? Councillor Wong-Tam to speak.
Yes, thank you very much, and I want to thank the deputants for coming out today. I recognize, and I will be moving a motion to defer this item only for one meeting cycle, which means that it will come right back to this committee in approximately 30 days. And the reason I do that is because I do recognize that there was a poll that was sent out from the city clerk's desk, but the results are not all in yet. And I do think that in the fairness of due process, we need to have that information before us. Having said that, I think it's also very important that the owner and operator of Stryker recognize that the relationship with the community is strained. I do recognize that the concerns of the community and the noise complaints that have been filed it should cause any operator some concern that relationship is not in as good standing as possible. And these are things that we take very seriously. We worked really hard to create a new noise bylaw in the City of Toronto. I know that was 6 years of work for the local community. People who have been coming out to advocate for stronger noise, a renewed noise bylaw, to have stronger regulatory regime to hold operators and others to account. And I do think that it's very important that they actually work with the local community to secure that support. At the next meeting, if I don't have the positive poll results in front of me, and if I don't have Stryker making some amends with the local community to try to reset the clock and to reset the community relations, my intention is to adopt the staff recommendation. And hopefully at that point in time, that message would have been loud and clear, sent right to the operators of the bar and establishment. But we will make that decision at the next meeting. And I want to just thank again everyone for coming out. Your voice and your concerns are registered here. I just want to make sure we have the poll results before we make a final decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of the mover? Councillor Cressy, I'm going to need you in your seat when we vote. Okay, so we have a motion to defer. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Sir, I'm very sorry, but once we bring it into committee to discuss amongst ourselves, we don't go back and forth with the public, okay? No, I need to be clear about that. Sir? Sir? Okay. The next item I have is TE 5.20, refusal of a Boulevard Cafe permit application located at 477 Church Street, Maitland Street flankage. Are there any members of the public who want to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none. Are there any questions of staff? No? Are there, to speak, Councillor Wong-Tam?
Yes, thank you very much. I do have a motion I'd like to move onto the screen. It also has a series of conditions to attach to the approval. This is an existing establishment on Church Street, just with the flankage of Maitland. I think, with all patios and the animation of sort of street life, there is a balance to be struck in these mixed-use environments. And from what I understand is that the patio is already in existence, they are already up and operating, but for some reason it's expired, and that's why it's before us. I believe that the property owner and the operator can do a better job, and which is why these conditions are now going to be attached to their approval. And then to have an operational review come back to us in about 2 years to make sure that they have done everything that they said that they would do, and that they will be agreeable to complying with. And so therefore we can actually have this animated street life, we can have very successful businesses, but we can also build out neighborhood peace, which I think is important. Thank you.
Okay. Questions of the mover? No? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Oh. Joe? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right.
21, well, we're just about at 11:30.
Looks to me like the clock says 11:30. Does it look like that to everybody else? Yeah? All right. Item TE 5.21, front yard parking appeal, 356 Bartlett Avenue North. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none. Councillor Bradford, I assume you have a motion?
Yep. On behalf of the local councillor, I'd like to defer this until May.
So, okay, we have a motion to defer until May. All those in favor of the deferral? All those opposed? That carries. Item TE 5.22, front yard parking appeal, 42 Bellhaven Road. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? No? Questions of staff? No? Councillor Bradford.
I'd like to make a motion to defer this indefinitely. I've spoke with the applicant, and he would like us to do that. We're hoping to have this reconsidered as the city's approach to electric vehicles becomes more modernized, and bring it back at that time.
I think our approach to electric vehicles is very modern.
Great.
Okay. There is a motion to defer. All those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. Councillor Cressy, I've noticed you've been quite busy. Are you ready to deal with 5.27? Yes. Okay. Item 5.27, Ontario Place Revitalization, results of subcommittee consultation, guiding principles and next steps.
Mr. Chair, could I just confirm, are we also dealing with item 5.26?
Okay, you know what? I'm a bad man. Why don't we deal with 5.26, which is Exhibition Place Cultural Heritage Landscape Assessment and Next Steps for Master Plan. You want to deal with that and this together? Is that the idea? Or
We can. I can move it quickly. I just noticed we were jumping ahead of 20.
Okay. You know what? To make everybody just feel real groovy and less worried, why don't we do them in order? We'll do the Exhibition Place item first. Councillor Layton, you held that. Are there any questions of staff? Okay. Anyone want to speak to this item?
Are you wearing my outfit on purpose?
Okay, look, you guys do not start with that. Just don't start, okay? We don't need this. Okay, guys? Kindergarten was a long time ago. I know.
It's the exact same outfit.
I like Councillor Layton's pocket square. Councillor Cressy.
On the item, I will move the staff recommendations.
The exhibition place.
This is the exhibition place item on the cultural heritage landscape assessment. Just very briefly in remarks, there is an exceptional there was an exceptional amount of work put into this. And if you haven't taken the time to read the study, I encourage you to. The history that has been shaped on the exhibition grounds, not just in the built form, but in the spaces in between, is something remarkable. And it was a truly exceptional report that was produced here. A cultural heritage assessment like we have here, it's very similar to an HCD. And I think it helps to ensure that we're not just looking at the buildings, but the way in which the buildings connect to each other, the spaces in between, and how to inform our broader master planning and exhibition place. Certainly we don't seek to freeze the neighborhood in time, but we don't lose the grounds and end up with a few buildings, much like they've done in other North American cities. And this is an exceptional tool in our toolbox to help ensure that, and our staff have been, as always, fabulous. Thanks, Linda and Dan. And tomorrow. Where's tomorrow? Who did I forget? That's all.
Anyone else to speak? Councillor Layton?
I'll just,
There's
just to
Tamara.
talk
Hi,
about
Tamara. We were just complimenting you.
where the genesis of this all came from was a subcommittee of this committee on a proposed official plan amendment at Exhibition Place. And it's refreshing to see us go through this process and using our subcommittees to actually initiate other really worthwhile and useful work. It just really, I don't think, was anticipated that we need to have it in such a short order to address some of the pressures coming from the province. But I commend staff on this, their research on it, and I questioned some of this at Heritage Preservation Board. They really have captured a lot of, I think, what the local community as well as citywide see as the asset of Exhibition Place and the role that it has served in the city. And so thank you for your work on this.
Does anyone else wish to speak? No? On the item, all those in favor, opposed, carried. 527, Ontario Place Revitalization, results of subcommittee consultation, guiding principles and next steps. Councillor Cressy? It's hard to tell the difference between you guys, eh?
Yeah, I can kick it off. I have an amendment that can be placed if clerks are ready. And the amendment is twofold. One is to require, from the city's perspective, an open and transparent decision-making process, and to receive a report from the city manager and DCM on what that evaluation plan may be before any proposals come forward. And the second is to ensure that the chair of the Ontario Place Subcommittee, who is the local councillor, myself, not Mike Layton, though we may look alike, and the chair of Exhibition Place are involved. A lot of work has gone into this report in front of us. Our city staff across departments have been working nonstop behind the scenes since the summer. We held an Ontario Place subcommittee meeting where we heard from 49 deputants, and that was Councillor Perks, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Layton, and myself. And it has frankly heartened me and surprised me to see the level of interest across our city in Ontario Place. That here, it's 155 acres of public land in the heart of Toronto. It was established in 1971 as an urban park for all Ontarians. And so you only get one chance to revitalize it, and thus you only get one chance to get it right. And what we've realized through our subcommittee and our exceptional City of Toronto staff work is that while the province owns part of the land, they don't own all the land. The city owns a part of it. And when it relates to the additional elements of infrastructure and servicing and transit, the province cannot go it alone. In fact, they must work with the city. Now, one element that was highlighted again and again by the subcommittee, and this has been spoken of by the City of Toronto, by the Exhibition Place Board many times over many years, is you can only properly revitalize Ontario Place if you also think about Exhibition Place. Now, that's risky. And so the report in front of us articulates very clear principles and priorities that would guide the city in undertaking any changes both to Ontario Place and Exhibition Place. Priorities like public access and connection to the waterfront, parkland and heritage, arts and culture, and year-round animation. We know what it shouldn't be, and that's a mega mall or a casino. But coming up with what it ought to be is going to be the hard part, and that's why you start with the principles in front of us. Now, this is risky because we keep saying that the province can't go it alone on Ontario Place, that they have to work with the city. And what the staff report in front of us is suggesting that we should also engage the province to work together based on our principles. Now, given the recent history of the province going it alone, that is not without risk. But Ontario Place does belong to all Ontarians. That future must be decided in public with public input and with the City of Toronto. And I believe the path we're undertaking here, clearly driven by public policy principles, is the best way for us to try and make the future of Exhibition Place and Ontario Place something that belongs to all Torontonians and all Ontarians, and something special. And so with that, I can move my amendment and the staff recommendations.
Thank you. Any other members to speak? Councillor Bradford, I'm going to need you in your chair so we can vote. Okay. Councillor Cressy's amendment and the item taken together. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. I have TE 5.30, 1075 Bay Street, zoning amendment application, preliminary report. Oh, she's not here. I believe Councillor Wong-Tam had an amendment. I'd be happy to move it on her behalf.
She's got a bunch of amendments that we know have.
I understand. Well, we'll do this one for now.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to, if you just want to change the name of the mover.
Or 20, pardon me.
30. Okay. So this is just the regular expanded requirements for consultation. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we now move to item TE 5.32. We have a deputant on the item, Magda Hadelmeyer. Magda, are you here? Is that Magda? No? Councillor Fletcher, do you have any advice for us on how to handle this item? Yes, there's Magda. Oh, hi Magda, how are you? Thank you for coming down. Take your time, settle in. Okay, so your microphone will go on by itself because we have this wonderful technician. You have a clock over here that you can watch your time on. We'll give you 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Okay?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Community Council. So I'm Magda Heidelmeyer, President of the Halliwell Place Residents Association. We represent about 1,500 residents in our area, which is along Broadview North of Danforth. And it encompasses Broadview Avenue, so on both sides from Pretoria Avenue up to Mortimer, and also including the Nealon Pocket, which is bounded by Jackman on the east and Fulton Avenue. So I'm here today to request that you do support planning staff's recommendations, that staff schedule a community consultation meeting in relation to 954, 958 Broadview Avenue, and also that the notice for the community consultation meeting be given to the landowners and residents as specified in the recommendation in the preliminary report. And just so you know, that proposal is within our area. So first of all, we do understand that this is planning staff's preliminary report and that there will be more information coming as planning and other divisions review this application, including the community consultations. And in general, of course, we agree with the concerns and the impacts that are raised by planning staff in their preliminary report. Given that this application is for an 18-story, 55.7 meters without mechanical penthouse seniors rental residence in an area that is predominantly low-rise and slated for moderate intensification. We're not downtown, as we'd like to say. In fact, it's an area which recently was subject of the Broadview Avenue planning study, which had extensive community consultations in which many of our members and residents from the wider community participated. That resulted in OPA 343, which was adopted by Council in 2016 and which we do support. In fact, I stood here, or sat here, nearly 4 years ago, before many more of you, urging you to adopt the Broadview Avenue Planning Study OPA 343 and the Broadview Avenue Urban Design Guidelines. And just to give you an idea, that amendment, so OPA 343, helps to define a human scale and livable planning vision for our area. It sets out the parameters for future development, which we think is responsible and sensitive to the local context, and which ensures compatibility between the existing and the future development. So we do view OPA 343 as an appropriate planning tool in regards to this particular proposal for an 18-story development. And our main concerns, which were also raised in the preliminary report, so include things like height and massing, heritage, and also light views and privacy, among others. And although the proposal to address the heritage-designated Chester School, which is the oldest surviving school building in the former municipality of East York, is addressed, we do not think it goes far enough. And some additional concerns that are not included in the preliminary report so include, in our view, in terms of shadowing, wind, overview, tall building separation, increased noise levels, traffic and safety, which includes the preservation of the Chester Hill Road bike lane, which is used quite an awful lot. It also includes changes to the aquifer and the slope stability, given that particular proposal backs onto the valley. So this is only an initial list, and of course, as further concerns will be identified as we do work with our planner. And in terms of consultations, I must say that we do have a very active, a very dedicated community, an involved community which cares about the future of its neighborhood and which does welcome responsible and sensitive development in our area. And so my recommendations are that respectfully, that the following be addressed by city planning. So especially as it relates to the properties to the north of the subject site, in this case it's 980 Broadview Avenue, and it does have a unique estimated 1.4 acre green space. So it's also to address the impacts on the buildings to the east of the subject site, and also, but not limited to the heritage buildings at 927 to 931 Broadview. And therefore not to address only the buildings to the south of that proposed, where the proposal will be. And so that would mean for planning to look at things like complete sun shadow study, complete wind impact study, complete view impact study, tall building separation, noise impact study, and so on. And if a working or stakeholder group or similar discussions are set up, so that's our second recommendation, is to look at the issues that are raised by this proposal. So we, as the Halliwell Residents Association, so we're willing to participate in that as long as it is without prejudice to our final position. And of course, we would expect to be named and to participate in those discussions. Also, we do respectfully request that any community meetings are not held during the summer month for obvious reasons that would not be representative and therefore not fair to the residents. Also, we do have a recommendation about the drawings or the renderings in the preliminary report, so that be looked at more carefully, and also for the notice of proposed development application and the public meeting sign in terms of reflecting the accuracy of the scale.
Magda, I'm going to have to ask you to conclude there, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? No?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We worked that timing out really well. So this is a preliminary report, and the staff have outlined a number of concerns. You've added some others that will be reflected in the consultation. I think, would you be happy if we can have a consultation very shortly to have that community meeting.
Yes.
I think we're looking at May 28th. That might be good. And that the school is buried inside the Estonian house. Do you have any idea how a heritage building got buried inside another development? That is interesting to me.
My readings of the history is that the Estonian community bought that heritage, so that school, at the time it was just an ordinary school that was closing in 1961, I believe. And then on, because of the needs they had in their community, so they proceeded to add a big hall, a banquet hall at the back. And then in the 70s, they added this addition for more office space to the front of that building. And so the proposal itself does want to remove the front and the back and leave at least the front portion of the heritage school revealed.
Right. And it is on that site at the moment.
That is correct. And from the original heritage review, so when the designation was, Heritage was looking at it in terms of whether it should be designated or not. So they did actually talk in terms of really the school itself being intact. And from my also, again, reading and conversations, so that school was not, the heritage building itself was not touched, in fact, when they were building those additions. So it's pretty well as it was.
And I have sent something out, I'm sure you got that, but I don't have any files from the former councillor, so I don't know everybody who's interested. But I hope you'll be able to help me circulate some of the letters that I'll be needing to send out to the community.
With pleasure.
Very
Happy
good.
to do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Magda? No? Thank you for coming down today. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make a deputation on this item? I don't see any. Any questions of staff? No? To speak, Councillor?
No, I have a question of, obviously, about this school. I don't think it is in our kind of heritage nature to have a heritage building covered back and front with a little slice of it showing. Is this kind of an odd situation for this heritage building?
It certainly is an odd situation, Councillor. I think because the historic Chester School was so far set back from the road that there was space in front to accommodate an addition. I think of it almost a little bit about our historic schools that had 1960s and 70s additions that were of a different style that were added on. The interesting thing was when we did the designation report was how much of the front elevation the historic building remained intact. So they didn't completely demolish it to add the front addition. So this is one of the reasons, the opportunity that it can actually be restored.
So be restoring the school and for a use as? What's the potential use then? And who owns the school? It's owned by the Estonian house, then it's now owned by Rivera, I guess, if they have bought this land yet.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's my understanding as well, that the school property, and that property is no longer a school, obviously. It's owned by the Estonian House as a community center now. And so, as has been described in the report and by the deputant, the proposal includes removing that modern addition from the front and conserving the heritage school building. It would be used as part of the retirement home like the rest of the building. I can't specify right now whether that particular portion of the development would accommodate residential units or sort of common amenity space. But that would certainly be part of our consideration when we evaluate the proposal and the appropriateness of the use of the heritage structure.
Because as it was used for the Estonian house, which was a cultural center, may be different than the use that's proposed for this site.
That's correct.
One thing to have a school building in your cultural center, it's another thing to have the heritage building.
That's correct, and presumably some adaptation of that structure would have to happen in order to accommodate their proposed use.
And is this application made on behalf of the Estonian house or the applicant, or the landowner, or the applicant? Or are they the same?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the application was made by Rivera, but the ownership stays with the Estonian House currently.
So the land hasn't transferred to, the ownership of that land has not transferred to Rivera,
That's my understanding, correct?
and it's probably conditional on this rezoning.
Uh,
Understanding?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Is there some way to know that prior to the public meeting, so everybody understands exactly the situation?
We can look into that with the applicant and get clarity on it.
And the issues that our deputant brought up from Helliwell Place, do you have any problem with any of those being considered, added on to the preliminary report for consideration?
No, they are typically what gets reviewed through a development review process, so I don't have any issue with that.
And the meeting might be on May 28th.
Yes, it will be on May 28th.
The stakeholder group that would be set up, which you wouldn't be calling planning meetings about the application in the summer, but there might be some stakeholder meetings in the summer.
That's correct.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Any other questions of staff? No? Councillor Fletcher to speak?
I do have a motion. It's quite lengthy, but it does include a number of issues that were brought up by the deputant. Also, that we have a very wide circulation of the actual notice for the meeting, which I hope will take place on May 28th, but we will confirm that later. And that the neighborhood associations in the neighborhood be formally asked by planning. There have been, I know that planning has a number of sign-up sheets, including all for the Broadview Avenue planning study, which, so I don't know where we're at with that, but I'm asking that everybody that's ever been interested be notified in the way that you notify anybody about a planning application. There might just be a few names on this one, but whoever has put their name down for Broadview, which is an area of great interest, that they would all be notified, not by me, because I don't have all those names, but through planning itself. And unfortunately, I don't have a lot of names in order to send out. I did get some from some of the sign-ins or people that said they'd share with the councillor, and that's how I sent my message out on Friday. So this is the motion, and I would just ask for support for that, please.
Questions of the mover? Anyone else to speak? No? All those in favor? Next, Councillor Wong Tan. Item T 5.35, 193201 Church Street zoning amendment application preliminary report. Councillor Wong Tan.
Yes, thank you. I believe we also have 5.30 ready to go now, but we can start with 5.35. I'd like to move.
We did 3-0.
Oh, you did already?
Yeah, I did it while you were out of the room because I'm a nice guy.
Wonderful. And did you move those amendments?
Yes, I did.
Thank you very much.
I'm a really nice guy.
I like the fact that you're such a nice guy. Okay, so then 0.35, I'd like to move the amendment. The staff can put that on the screen. We're ready to go.
Okay.
Super.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
TE 5.46, construction staging area, Councillor Cressy, 75 The Esplanade, Church Street.
Thank you, Chair. I have an amendment, if that can be put on the screen. And this is, with this amendment, I can relate it to cycling lanes, pedestrian access, cleanliness, consultation, and appropriate signage. And working with our construction management group with that amendment, I can move the item.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. TE 5.48, construction staging area, Dalhousie Street, 215 to 229 Church Street, and 117 Dundas Street East. Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to move the amendment. Motion is on the screen.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.49, construction staging area, 177 Front Street East. Councillor Wong Tam.
Okay, and moving this, a very similar amendment. Motion.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.50, construction staging area 65 King Street East, Colburn Street, Leader Lane. Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, I'll be moving another motion.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.69, traffic controls Lumsden Avenue and Cedarvale Avenue. Councillor Bradford.
I'd like to move additional recommendation that City Council requests the General Manager Transportation to review the intersection as part of the 2020 Toronto Safety and Local Improvement Program.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 5.75, TD Toronto Jazz Festival 2019 in Bloor, Yorkville. We have Deputant Emily. Come on up.
How are you guys?
I'm doing good. How about you?
It's been a while.
It has been.
At least since I last ripped your heads off on this committee.
Now, there'll be no ripping of heads.
Oh, yeah. We're closing up. I'm just going to do my magic table.
I know.
Something like that.
So you know the rules, Emily?
Oh, yeah. So are we down to 3 minutes or are we 5?
5. No, we do 5 here. We believe in local democracy.
So I am a long time, well, say a fairly long time volunteer of Toronto Jazz Festival, especially when it was down here at City Hall grounds, and our headquarters was in a very nice wheelchair accessible hotel. I have two things I want to speak of, and Gord and Kristen Wong Tam and Mike all know me well enough to know, and so does Josh. It's about the accessibility of Yorkville. Currently, our headquarters for volunteers is in a hotel along Bloor that has no proper wheelchair accessible washrooms. So those of us that are volunteers with wheelchairs or mobility devices have to use washrooms at other places. My problem with Yorkville is this: it is barely wheelchair accessible. And I mean barely, and I'm being nice. So when the festival is set up, it is very difficult for us to navigate, and there's certain areas, I don't know how to describe this, but there's a Cumberland, and then there's a big area where there's gravel and grass and patio, and then a laneway, like an alleyway. Well, that patio grass thing is not wheelchair accessible. I've gotten stuck in the gravel numerous times and the grass. And the other problem is there's not many curb cuts along that lane or along the next one. So thankfully I learned Hazelton lanes last year, and they were nice enough to let us use the washrooms. But one problem we're having in the area, especially those who come from around the world, basically. I mean, last year I met people from all over the place. One problem we're having is wheelchair accessibility of facilities and of venues. I know they're trying really, really hard, but I would like the city to help out if possible. And that is bring the accessibility committee at Lens into it a little bit, if possible. The local councillor who is very strong about accessibility and is somebody who I greatly admire, knows all too well that when it comes to accessibility, I'm like a little pit bull. I don't give up. And as a volunteer, it's been very frustrating getting around, helping people navigate, helping people that are coming to the festival be able to find a restaurant that's actually wheelchair accessible, because there's so few in that area. Need I mention the first pot shop that opened, not accessible. So I would really like to see the festival work. I think that the move from my own personal opinion, I'm taking my volunteer hat off for a moment. My own personal opinion is accessibility went to the trash bin when they left Nathan Phillips Square area. The venues became a lot less accessible. Not just sidewalk issues, not just where you guys are putting barricade issues, construction issues from last year, but also it's not near an accessible subway station. Bay Station is not accessible, likely not in any of our lifetimes. And the Bay bus, yes, it runs north-south along Bay, but it's a long walk from Yonge Station. When it was down here near City Hall, we had Osgood, we had Queen, and now we have St. Patrick, all wheelchair accessible, great for people coming to the festival. I think Yorkville is really hard and difficult because there's narrow sidewalks, there's a lot of people running around with cars. And there were some issues last year with safety pertaining to barricades being not wide enough from the sidewalk and not the good side of the curb cut where people couldn't get through. And another part was there was people, elderly people that didn't feel safe because of the cars running around in certain parts. So my biggest concern about the festival, I love it. It's a great volunteer opportunity, and I very much value the organizers, and I very much respect them. But it's come to a head. I could barely volunteer last year because it was so difficult for me to find washroom facilities. Thank God for the new McDonald's that's on Bloor. But honestly, accessibility has become a huge thing in Yorkville. It's a problem. And I know it's an area where a lot of rich people go shop and go live, but not everyone drives a car. Not everyone can access public transportation from there.
I'm going to ask you to wind up, Emily.
Yes, sir. So my hashtag is accessibility for all, and please think about that because it's a vital part, and not just elderly people go to these festivals. This festival is vital to our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the deputy? No? Thanks, Emily. Anyone else wishing to make a deputation on this item? Seeing none, questions of staff? No? Speak, Councillor Layton.
Thank you very much. I'll move the recommendations there. You'll note in them, there was a desire this year to extend the period of the street closure on Cumberland. We've granted that with the support of both the BIA and the Residents Association. There was also a desire to close Avenue Road just south of Bloor to put a big outdoor stage for a couple of days. Transportation weren't too keen on that particular closure. So in meeting with them and others, we actually opted for Bloor Street because Bloor Street, you'll note that the opening weekend of the Jazz Festival, it also happens to be Pride weekend. Well, Bloor and Church is closed for like every day of that weekend anyhow. And so we figured if we're just going to extend the closure of Bloor over to Avenue, that may make some sense because no one in probably their right mind would drive down there during that weekend anyhow. And it's, well, you know, they certainly do. I think every weekend that people make errors of judgment in that. But this, I thought was a good compromise. So that opening weekend of the Jazz Festival coincides with Pride. There'll be a lot of street closures down there, but a lot of good times being had. I appreciate Emily's comments, and I'll relay that back to the organizers. The city doesn't dictate where they do their festival, except we respond to their applications. And I don't think there was a forcible moving them from Nathan Phillips. I think that this was something that the festival wanted to do. And we'll continue to support them however we can.
Okay. Any questions? No? On the item? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Members, I have to consult with the clerk for one moment. I just realized something's off.
Thank you. Yes. Yep. I know, I said I'd be introducing that because there's only certain streets.
So members, we have 2 items of business to introduce. TE 588, which is a letter from Councillor Bailao, and TE 589, which is a letter from Councillor Fletcher. Can I have a motion to introduce? Councillor Fletcher, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Councillor Bradford, do you have any advice for us on 88?
On behalf of the local councillor, move to approve the recommendations in the letter, please.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Councillor Fletcher on 589, which is intersection safety at Pape and Danforth. Okay, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Members, I think that takes us to our bills.
What, sorry, you didn't do 485 Logan.
485, what, is it new? Sorry. 485 Logan?
Do you have an item number?
Just a second. 5.8, did we hold the 5.8?
It has,
Is 8 on hold? It was amended. I need to look in my
It
notes.
was, I believe it was dealt with.
oh, okay.
I think,
Planner seemed to think we hadn't dealt with it.
Just a second.
get your story straight over.
You amended it, it was shared together.
Just want to make sure that it was amended.
It was amended, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
It was amended with the motions that had been
your
sent.
motion.
Pardon me?
Yeah, it was with your, I need to look,
Yes,
though I
I
can't
did see
remember.
that.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, that's okay.
Make sure.
I'm only asking for the planning staff.
I'm just going to keep my eye on you.
Your eye there.
Okay. Do we have bills?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll just pull down 90. That's what we decided to do. Councillor Fletcher,
Yes. Oh, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that Toronto and East York Community Council pass and declare as bylaws Bills 613 to 662 and 666, prepared for the April 2014 meeting 5 of Community Council.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Bradford, you have a bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Toronto and East York Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of Toronto and East York Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 5, April 24, 2019.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So that concludes our business. Thank you very much.